Hi and welcome this new video. You are here because you wanted to know what are the top mistakes that most of the artists are making, and it's not only the beginners, like many of the artists who are doing the resin artwork and especially geode artwork for many weeks and months don't know about those easy fixes that can turn your average painting into something very high-end finish and luxurious product. So if you want to know all of the 13 mistakes that I've listed and how to fix them, stay till the end of the video and I will guarantee you that you will definitely save a lot of time, money and frustration thanks to all of those things that you will correct out of the gate and right from the start without even learning from your own mistakes and losing all of this money, time and being frustrated in the process and questioning yourself, questioning yourself. This is really something for me. Maybe I'm not cut to be an artist, so let's start. Let's not waste any more time and let's start. So the first thing is to use a proper resin for your project. So if you are here and you want to do and learn geode art and you want to start your first geode painting, it's very important that you use appropriate resin for your project, and it needs to be definitely high viscosity. I work a lot with colorberry geode resin, but there are other resins like tabletop mass epoxies or arte resin, which is also good for geode pouring. You need to always adjust to the resin that you are working. If the resin is having 45 minutes, please always make sure that you mix accordingly the amount of resin that you can pour within this time, right? And you also leave it enough time and space on the canvas to work with it. So I'm gonna definitely talk about resin which I'm using, which is 45 minutes working time and higher viscosity, and you can adjust whatever to the brand that you are using. You can always adjust the tips that I'm giving you, but make sure that next to the proper resin for the project, you are also using the proper tools. If you want to have control over the resin that you are pouring, if you want to have the design that you planned beforehand, please make sure that you use the proper tools as well. If you use heat gun, a lot of the artists are using heat gun, and that's the huge no and huge mistake, because heat gun is making the resin very warm and much more liquid, and the resin is starting to run all over the place. It's just unpredictable where it's gonna go and how it's gonna behave whenever you are starting to use heat gun. So if you want the resin to go in the direction that you plan to, please make sure that you don't use a heat gun, just use blowtorch at the end of your project to get rid of the bubbles. And this is also another thing, don't go, the third mistake is to going into the project without any plan. So just if you are the beginner and you still are not familiar very well with how the resin behaves and what looks good on the canvas, please make sure that you do the plan before you even mix your resin, right? So make sure that you know where you are gonna put the crystals, when you are gonna put the druzy, which lines you are gonna pour with the resin, how far from the druzy, what is the flow of the painting, and make sure that you think about it before you will be like going into this excitement mode, or like, I'm having 1 hour of free time, let's take this canvas and just start pouring. Because without any proper plan, it's like 50-50 chance that you will find yourself with a painting that doesn't have any nice flow and design, right? It's just like very random. So another thing is not leveling your surface before you start working with resin. Whenever you are working with fluid art, you need to make sure that the resin is the surface that you are working on is perfectly leveled, and Otherwise, everything that you will pour and make, you know, put all of this time and effort into creating a design on the canvas, everything is gonna run, because resin is curing a couple of hours, so everything is gonna run in the direction of the level. So that is very important to not forget, and protect the sides of the canvas. If you want to have very nice crispy edges, protect the sides with the tape. Don't just take any random MDF board or wooden canvas and start pouring, because you get overexcited, right? Slow and steady, take time, you know, plan ahead, especially if those things are not your usual habits, that you are making them without even thinking, right? Before you build like a professional artist habits that will allow you to, you know, have all of those things in place even before you start pouring. Make sure that you take your time, don't rush into the process. And another very important step, another mistake that I'm talking about here, it's overusing the product, pouring too much resin, adding too much pigments. There's so many different colorants, from alcohol inks, paste, and powders, and you really need to use, if you want to have a delicate and soft results in your painting, and soft uh, tones in your painting, remember to not overuse the product. You really need much less than you think you need to color the resin and to really have a beautiful results and professionally looking canvas. So you don't need to throw a lot of the pigments inside, and that's why it's also very important. I think that at the beginning of the journey you think that you need so many different products, right? You need this and this and that, and you need this like dozens of colors and dozens of pigments, because what if you will need like this shade of the blue, or like lighter shade of the blue and darker shade of the blue, but it's far away from truth. With just one pigment you can create so many different nice shades and some different like effects, from very matte finish, not matte but just regular finish, to very sparkly and very nice, you know, mica powder glimmery effects. And it's just with one of two pigments you can create very complex look and painting. So another thing is eyeballing the amount of resin that you need. Those are the calculators. There are many calculators, resin calculators online, that you can use to make sure that you have enough resin, not too less and not too much. Never eyeball the resin. Always make sure that you know how big are the surfaces that you are working on, and use the proper resin calculator for your resin, right? Don't eyeball it. But also, if the calculator is gonna show you, I'm working in milliliters in Europe, so if the calculator is gonna show you, hey, mix like 600 milliliters or 500 milliliters, if you are a beginner, I would rather advise you to stick to maximum 250 300 milliliters, and then when you finish pouring this batch of the resin, just mix a little bit more, depends how more you need to finish your pour, right? But don't mix at the same time everything that the calculator is showing you, because you will find yourself in a rush. You will find yourself, if you want to really take this process slowly and think about the lines that you are pouring and do the geode shaping, and make sure that you leave some space for the lines, just make sure that you don't use all of the resin that the calculator is showing you before you start your pour. And another thing that is very important, especially if you start working with the crystals, and this is something that many artists are not doing, and this is something that I see over and over again on the tutorials videos, is just throwing randomly glass on the surface and the crystals, right? And not attaching them properly. If you have some heavy pieces of glass or crystals and any other highlights that are much more heavy and bigger than just a very small gravel, make sure that you glue it with the hot glue gun first before you even continue pouring your resin. And then you can reattach on the later stages. You can reattach those points with a little bit of leftover resin and make sure that they stick to the surface um, very nicely, you know, thanks to the resin. But before you even start working with that, make sure that all of your composition and big pieces are attached with the hot glue. Um, Another mistake that so many artists make are taking too many colors and creating design with just like 5, 6, 7 different colors. Even if you want to make your painting just blue, please make sure that you take just one blue pigment and work from there. You can make it more opaque, less opaque. You can add white pigment, you can add like pearly mica powder, or you can just add more product to make it light, or less product to make it lighter or more intense. But your painting will flow much nicely and will be put together much nicely, and everything will be just going together very smoothly when you use the same pigment and go from there. If you use different shades, because as you know, sometimes blue can be cold, can be warm, so yeah, that can create some interesting look. But if you are not very well like educated in the colors and what is going together nicely or not, it's better to work from one pigment and just work from there, right? Just choose one blue or two blues and that's it. Don't go and bring like 7 different pigments which are not having anything in common. And another thing is pouring very straight lines. Geode art is something beautiful because it's coming from the crystals, and you have all of this crystal energy, and hopefully you are building in your center of the design. You are building in the design from also the crystals and not only just pure glass and sand. And if you create this amazing design and shape, then you are pouring in the lines and the flow of the center, right? You need to take time and do some geode shaping to make it look natural. The more time you spend on geode shaping, the more natural results you will get, and your paintings will be looking very natural, will have very nice flow, and they will resemble the image of the agate slices so nicely. And if you will just pour straight lines or just like pour resin in the middle and then draw the lines like randomly, there is no flow, there's nothing that it's coming together, and it's nothing, you know, there's some random chaos instead. So remember to always go with the flow of your center, with the flow of the crystals and the advanced crystal formation that you put inside of your design. Another mistake that I really notice with so many artists is making everything like complete painting in just one pour, like throwing the glass, throwing the crystals, pouring resin, adding many resin lines, adding highlights, everything in one go. From start to finish, you do everything in like one painting, and then only adding some acrylic pen lines later, and that's it, you know. No, that's not the right way to work with the geode resin on a very advanced level. It's very important that you remember that geode resin is having like 15 steps, and every single step is just like a couple of hours between, right? Or even a day from one to the other. And there is no way, if you want to have like a very nice peaceful flow in your painting, there's no way that you can throw everything on the canvas in one go and achieve the results. Never add highlights to your resin when you've poured the first layer of resin. Always wait until the resin is cured and then add your highlights with your top coat. And this is another mistake that so many artists are not doing. They're top coating, they're skipping or top coating the painting at the end. And as you know, the acrylic pens are very easy to scrape and scratch on resin, on very smooth and silky resin surface. So it's so easy to go with your nail and just randomly scratch it. So it's very, very important that you seal your geode painting with a top coat to protect all and every detail of your painting. And if you do the top coat, you cannot, there's so many steps that I will cover in probably next videos, because this one would be very, very long if I will talk about each and every one of the topics to the fullest. But remember to also follow the proper steps about top coating your piece, because it's very, very, it's like your sealing surface, and if it's not gonna be properly done, it's gonna ruin all of the hard work that you put before that. And that's my last mistake and piece, which is so important, that I want to cover, is if you, when you pour your first layer with resin and something is not going exactly your way, and the resin is not behaving exactly the way that you want it to, or is flowing a little bit more here, or is like, you know, going under druzy a little bit more, just don't mess with that, girl. Just skip it, just leave it, and come back to this piece and balance it later. This is the beauty about working with geode resin, and you can balance the piece over and over again. You can rebalance, you can add another layer, you can add so many details, and you can always rebalance the piece later. Don't try to achieve the end result when you are pouring your first layer of resin. It's not nothing that's gonna really happen, and it's gonna only leave you frustrated. And when you pour your last layer of the resin, the top coat, the float coat, don't go back to the room. Just leave it very slowly and quietly. Shut the door and don't revisit this room for the 12 hours, or maybe sooner if your resin is curing faster. But don't revisit the room. Just like all of those dust particles that are gonna flow into the air and move around you when you are moving through the room, they're gonna sit on the painting, and then you will see it when the resin will be cured at the end. So just leave the piece, let it be for a couple of hours, and leave it for the rest of the day, and then go back to the room. But yeah, those are my most common mistakes that I see so many students of mine are doing, and artists over and over and over again. And if you will follow this guidance, you will notice that you can save yourself a lot of time, money, and frustration, so you will not have to redo the project all over again. And if you want to have some more advanced, you know, tips and tricks, or even like over the shoulder guide, how to pour a piece from start to finish, please make sure that you see, you know, follow me and you subscribe and you see other of the videos that I'm posting here. But also I will list below in the description the trainings that I'm offering, where you can just go with me hand in hand through the entire process, where I'm sharing with you how to do it exactly, and I'm also showing you how I'm doing this exactly and why I'm doing that. This is very important. This is the 5% knowledge or 10% knowledge that most of the artists are not sharing with other people and are keeping them to themselves. So yeah, check the description, leave like, leave a thumb up, and I'm gonna see you hopefully in the next video.